Welcome into Dynasty Trading Room. We finally have 2025 NFL film to watch, and we're here today to bring you a video on the implications of that Week 1 preseason action. Well, you have to take any preseason film with a grain of salt. There are some real implications that we can take away, more so than training camp at least. When we're looking at preseason football, the biggest takeaways we're going to find are in the younger players, specifically rookies. We already have enough film on NFL veterans that we don't need to take away the yards per carry in a preseason game. We can also get a look at camp battles, those positional breakdowns. Who's the RB1? Who's the RB2? Are we going to see this wide receiver out with the starting unit often? Those kind of implications we can get a hint at. Now let's jump straight into the biggest dynasty implications from preseason week 1. The first dynasty riser from week 1 preseason football I have is probably the biggest surprise for me. Harvey was the starter out there for the Broncos in preseason week 1. That's not something many of us in the fantasy community expected right off the bat. While many people expect Harvey to take over Dobbins for the starting role sometime during the season, right out of the gate, we expected Dobbins to be the starter. Now, it could be that Sean Payton just doesn't think J.K. Dobbins needs the preseason snaps, and I totally agree with that view if Dobbins didn't play in the preseason at all, or at least in this preseason game. But Dobbins got carries. He just got them after Harvey. Harvey started each of the 3 drives for the Broncos that Bo Nix and the starters were out there. Dobbins only mixed in a couple of times when Harvey needed a spell. Harvey looked the part too. He had explosive runs, got to the outside well, was effective as a pass catcher. He really just hit all the boxes for a starting running back in the NFL. If from week 1, Harvey is the starter, like it looked like in preseason action, then that RB19 valuation on Keep Trade Cut is going to look very silly early in the season. This is a Broncos team that throws their running backs a lot. Sean Payton has had great success with his running backs for fantasy in the past. And this Broncos team, they have a rising offense, a rising young offense. Next up is the player I was most looking forward to watching in preseason action, and that's Travis Hunter. Obviously, there's the offense versus defense argument for fantasy. How much is he really going to be out there on offense? Well, in the drives that the starters played, that Trevor Lawrence played, Travis Hunter was out there the whole time. Not only that, but he was a priority target for the team, seeing a third down target and manufactured looks in the screen game. He didn't even get on the field on defense until later in the game once the starters were already out. So it's clear that this team sees him as a wide receiver first and a DB second. Right now, on Keep Trade Cut, Hunter's going behind Tet McMillan. Now, don't get me wrong, Tet McMillan is a great prospect, and I'm really excited to have him in Dynasty. But Travis Hunter was the higher draft pick, he has the better college profile, so there's no reason, really, if he's going to be primarily playing wide receiver, to have him below Tet McMillan in Dynasty rankings. Sticking with the Jacksonville Jaguars, their backfield is one to watch throughout preseason. In week 1, Travis Etienne may have surprised everyone by getting all of the snaps with the starters. There's been a lot of buzz through camp that Tank Bigsby is going to take over that starting role, or at least split time with Etienne. Well, not in week 1 of the preseason. It was all Etienne with the starters. That being said, Etienne did not look good as a runner in preseason. Now, that's not surprising. We've seen this before. He hasn't been very efficient on the ground. Once Bigsby did come in, he looked a lot better as a between-the-tackles runner. It wasn't until later on that we got to see Bashal Tutin with his first touches, but he looked really good when he was out there. Very fluid, very fast, explosive, all the things that we saw in the college profile, but also he looked really good between the tackles. He fell forward for extra yards, he was able to find the right gaps, things that people were a little more worried about from his college tape. Well, it's too early to say definitively what's going to happen out of this backfield. I would put more weight on Tutin being a riser here. It's unlikely that Travis Etienne will be on this team past this year, so it's really Tank Bigsby that would be the impediment to long-term value for Bashal Tutin here in Jacksonville. If Bigsby hasn't shown enough to the coaching staff yet to at least work in with Etienne early on, then I don't know if they trust him enough to take any role from Tutin starting next year. Next up on the list, and this is the name that's getting all the news, unsurprisingly, Shedeur Sanders. Sanders looked good in his first NFL action. He was mostly accurate, he handled pressure well, and even showed off some scrambling that wasn't necessarily part of his college profile. Now, I don't think anyone is expecting Sanders to be the week 1 starter in Cleveland, but I also don't think he's going to be that fourth string quarterback that the depth chart shows thus far. Joe Flacco's likely to start week 1 and through the start of the season, but I doubt that they want to run with an old Joe Flacco all season long. Sanders is the most obvious upside candidate in that quarterback room to take over when they've moved on from Joe Flacco. There's also more long-term dynasty value here to be had than people seem to be giving credit. Everyone seems to think that the Browns are just going to go ahead and take a quarterback again next year and Sanders' value will be tanked. Kevin Stefanski is a good coach. This team could have a good defense. If that's the case, I can see a 6-7 win season in line for the Browns. If that's the case, they may be out of that tier 1 and even tier 2 class of quarterbacks in next year's draft. At that point, they'll probably just run with Sanders again if he shows the flashes that we've seen thus far. Moving on now to another round 1 rookie wide receiver, Matthew Golden. The Packers wide receivers could not hold on to the ball in week 1 of the preseason. That is except for Matthew Golden, who made a really nice catch and would have had another if it weren't for a pass interference. More importantly, Golden was out there with the starters right off the bat. He was out there for every single snap that Jordan Love was. Not only did Golden have a nice catch and should have had another, he looked open on almost every route he ran. I think there's a great chance that from day 1, he is the wide receiver 1 for this team, and so far, he's showing he can handle it. The other round 1 wide receivers from this draft are going on keep trade cut as the wide receiver 15, 16, and 18. Meanwhile, Golden's all the way down at wide receiver 28. That value differential just doesn't make sense for a guy joining a great offense and could be the number 1 target in that group. Now on to Tyler Warren. Warren was someone that coming out of college, I was a little lower than consensus on. Don't get me wrong, I think he was a great prospect, but I had him well below Loveland in my ranks. My issues with him stem mostly from his route running. It wasn't as refined as someone like Loveland, and I thought that could be a barrier early on in his career to production at the NFL level. At Penn State, Warren had a lot of manufactured touches, a lot of rushing attempts, and that may have artificially increased his production in a way that masked some of those deficiencies in his route running ability. Well, it looks based on preseason week 1 that the Colts are going to use Tyler Warren in all of those same ways. They went to him early and often in this preseason game. He was used on a screen. He was used to beat zones. They really just seemed to target him a lot. Now, obviously, this wasn't a real NFL game. This wasn't a regular season game. Michael Pittman wasn't out there. Josh Downs wasn't out there. So there wasn't as much target competition for Warren. Still, based on how he was used in that week 1 of preseason and all of the positive buzz coming out of training camp, I'm much more comfortable with Warren where he's valued in Dynasty. Next up on my list is Ravens running back Keaton Mitchell. Mitchell looked absolutely explosive coming off his knee injury here in preseason action. Now, don't get me wrong, I never want to bet against Derrick Henry, but he's getting older. Injury risk could be going up, and it's possible that his career is coming to a close sooner than later. Mitchell looks primed to be the one to replace Henry once he is gone, or even fill in for him if he misses time with injury this season. Justice Hill seems to be the reason that this is getting complicated in dynasty circles. Well, Justice Hill is a great complement to Derrick Henry as a pass-catching back. He's not a great replacement for Derrick Henry. If Henry does miss any extended period of time, I expect Mitchell to fill in for the majority of carries, while Justice Hill sticks in that third down, passing down kind of role. Keaton Mitchell's currently ranked as RB 62 on Keep Trade Cut. I think he should be up in that category of handcuff running backs on good teams. Think Jalen Wright, Isaac Guerendo in the mid RB 40s range. Next up, I have another young running back in Kyle Monangai. The rookie back for the Chicago Bears looked really good in his first action in the NFL. Now, he's currently seen as the RB3 on this team, but that's behind two running backs that really haven't impressed anyone, especially last season. Yes, the entire Bears rushing attack, maybe the entire Bears offense, was just awful last year. So you can't hold every stat against each of these running backs. But Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift just looked bad last year. For Swift, that's nothing new. Outside of 1 year on low volume, he's been a very inefficient runner. That's because he's often stopped right at the line or before it. While he has the ability to break off big plays, he's just not consistent enough picking up yards to really be trusted as a lead back. Roschon Johnson just hasn't shown much of anything yet in his NFL career. He's done okay in a goal line role, but he's been far from exciting. If Monangai can build on this and continue putting out good performances through camp and preseason, I wouldn't be surprised to see him win the number 2 role outright and possibly even start taking snaps from DeAndre Swift down the line. My last highlight is the Rams backfield. Now this is one that I just don't understand. Jarquez Hunter is the RB 55 on Keep Trade Cut. I understood it before the Kyren extension. Maybe the Rams don't really like Kyren as much as we think they do. Maybe they want someone with more explosiveness to work in, get more carries. But now with the Kyren extension, it has to be clear that he is their lead back moving forward. And what did we see in week 1 of preseason? Is that Corum is the number 2. Corum got all of the early snaps, and he looked good doing it. Corum scored 2 touchdowns on the day, something he's very used to doing from his time at Michigan, and looked overall like a really quality NFL back. When Hunter did check into the game, he just didn't look very good. He didn't show off much of that explosiveness that we saw from college, and he looked a little bit overwhelmed. Right now on Keep Trade Cut, Hunter's valued at RB 55 to Corum 65, and I think those should be flipped. If Kyren does miss time, Corum is the clear successor to him for the majority of carries. Well, we could see Hunter mix in. We've seen with McVay that one running back is his go-to. That's all for preseason week 1 Dynasty implications. But if you like this content, like and subscribe so that you can continue to get Dynasty Trading Room's best Dynasty advice to help you win your Dynasty leagues.